Hi, my friend. Do you need a little inspiration today? I hope so, because I've got an inspiring video coming up for you, an interview with an amazing author who once was just like you. My name is Kelly Notaras. I'm the founder of KN Literary Arts. We are a book studio, your one-stop shop, getting you from book idea all the way to book in your hand. You can visit us at knliterary.com for lots of information and also to schedule a free call. I bring a lot of great information from my 20 plus years in the US book publishing business right here on this YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you never miss a video. Today's video is one I'm really excited about for both personal and professional reasons. From a professional perspective, you know that I love bringing you really good confidence building content. And today I'm bringing you the story of an author who never thought she was going to be an author and who at midlife made a big transition in her life away from a career working, in corporate publishing, toward becoming a life coach and now a best-selling author of 4 books. You are just like her. She is just like you, and her story is going to inspire you, I've no doubt. So without further ado, I bring you my interview with my best friend, Nancy Levin, who's also a KN Literary client and an author that you can look up to. Nancy Levin, could I be more excited to talk to my best friend here on my YouTube channel? I don't think I could be. Welcome.
Yay, I feel like a celebrity.
You are a celebrity. I'm so happy to have you here for a couple different reasons. I mean, number one, because I love you. And hey, we're actually getting to do like a cool work thing together. How cool is that? And secondly, because you and I have talked about this and you've spoken at some of my live events where like you really did do the thing that so many people who are following me and learning from me want to do, which is you went from not being an author all the way to being a best-selling author of 5 books, right? At this point,
Yeah.
with more on the way. And you actually have used your books as part of this process to create a business for yourself that once was a side hustle and is now fully your main gig. You have a whole team, you've got a business, you've got all the things. And I just know there are so many people watching who are excited to hear from you a little bit about how you did that. So, I guess I'll start with, why don't you tell us a little bit about where you were before you decided you wanted to become an author and a coach, and then what you did to make that leap, and then what's happened since?
I love it. So I was the event director at Hay House for 12 years, and it was what I thought was my dream job. I absolutely loved traveling the world with the mind's greatest authors and thinkers and teachers in the field of personal empowerment. And it was funny because along the way, people would often ask me, when are you going to speak, or when are you going to do your thing? And I always said, like, this is actually my thing. I love doing what I'm doing. And it fulfilled a really creative side for me in the producing. And also I got to, MC all of our events. So I got to be on stage, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And then, this major catastrophe happened in my life. Catastrophe turned massive blessing, which was that my marriage blew up. And
and you've been married for quite some time.
I've been married for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of my marriage blowing up, I had a lot of things to look at. And, I had a choice. I could, sort of just go back to sleep and stay unexposed, or I could make the choice to really take the jump and really wake up into a new life. Mm-hmm. And so that was the catalyst at first for me to want to really go on an excavation of my own interior world, to connect the dots of my life and see what was happening and what did I need to do in order to be able to move forward. Mm-hmm. And so one of my dear friends, Debbie Ford, who was at the time a Hay House author, and she has since passed, she was the one who really, when I first revealed my truth to her, she was the one who said, for this next event, you're going to come and you're going to sit your ass in the chair, you're going to do the work, and you're going to let your staff produce the event. And so that was actually a real pivotal point for me to begin the journey of the self-inquiry, of, beginning to connect the dots, or create the constellation of my life, as it were. Mm-hmm. And so as I was embarking on this journey with Debbie, I recognized that I really loved this work of hers. And so I got my first coach. And then I decided to go through her coach certification training, which was a year-long program. It was more rigorous than my master's degree. And, my job at Hay House at the time was like the equivalent of 3 full-time jobs. I was traveling over 200 days a year. And yet this was so important to me, and I was so passionate about it, that I put everything I had into this coach training, never in a million years thinking I would ever be a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I had no designs on being a coach ever. I just wanted to do the work. And I wanted, something that was really important to me was, I wanted to get onto the other side of my own healing, because I also knew that there was something that had started to grow in me of wanting to help others heal. But I knew that I would need to do my own healing first.
I just want to pause you right there, because I truly believe that so many people come to the path of becoming an author for exactly that reason, because there's this just a whisper of like, I'm supposed to help. That's what I'm here to do. And I went through this whole experience and I'm still making sense of it, but this is an experience that taught me so much about my life. I need to get it down on the page. So I just wanted to point that out, because I know there are people watching this who are like, wait, that's me. That exact thing happened to me.
Absolutely. That's exactly how it goes. And so, I had gone through this whole personal experience. I needed to process it. I needed to make sense of it. I needed to connect the dots. And then on the other side of the training certification, a year later, I was really unrecognizable from the woman who started it. And that was, for me, the key moment of recognizing I want to help other people get free. I want to help other people in a different way than I had been doing up until then. I had been sharing little pieces of my story along the way with people close to me. And even though I feared revealing my truth to many, what I discovered was that the people I feared revealing myself to the most were the ones who rallied around me the fiercest. And as I was going through the process of getting divorced, a crazy thing happened in that 2 of my coworkers at Hay House were getting married, and they asked me to write a poem for their wedding ceremony, knowing that I had a master's in poetry. So I wrote and read a poem during their wedding ceremony, and Reed Tracy, the president of Hay House, heard that poem, and he said to me, "So you're a real poet?" And I said, "Well, of course I'm a real poet. I have a master's in poetry." And he said, "I think what you should do is start sharing your poems on stage as you're introducing the speakers at the events." So this was a crazy idea to me, that I would share something so deeply personal to me. And so, I had a master's in poetry, but I never thought I would write a book. I never thought I would publish. My poetry was very personal to me. And what I discovered as I was sharing my poems on stage was that the more personal, the more universal. And so
I just want to pause again. Really good point for our authors watching. The more personal, the more universal. A lot of times people are like, why would anyone want to read my story? And it's because we like to see other versions of our own experience. Everyone's having these experiences.
Right. Really what it is we want to find ourselves in someone else's story, and we want to give someone the opportunity to find themselves in our own story.
Yes.
And so if I hadn't had the courage to reveal these pieces of myself, I wouldn't have been able to have the resonance and the connection and the intimacy that I have been able to then, to have with others. Yeah. So, but it was also a big piece about becoming visible. And I know that this is something for authors.
Oh my gosh, so many.
To really step into center stage of my own life. I had built my career on having a backstage pass and a front row seat. Yeah. And now I was really having to take center stage and stand in the spotlight. And it's one thing to announce, the bathroom break or the lunch break. It's a whole other thing to stand on stage and share a poem, especially when I'm introducing someone like Wayne Dyer or Louise Hay or Carolyn Mace or Marianne Williamson or you name it. in my mind, I'm thinking that the audience is thinking, what is she doing here? We want to see them. And I'll never forget, it was in Pasadena, that at the end of an evening, someone came up to me and said, I thought I came here to hear Wayne Dyer, but I came here to hear that poem. And so, that was just continuing the reinforcement in me of the necessity of being able to have my voice be heard. And so shortly after that, Reed was the one who actually said to me, why don't you put together a book of your poems? And he said, I'm not going to publish it or anything.
So this is a really good point, though. I want to say he wasn't going to publish it, not because he didn't think that your poems were good or worthy. He's the one that told you to publish them. Yeah. So why was it that he suggested you self-publish?
He just didn't think it was a fit for Hay House. That, he just didn't think that he would be, that it was the fit for, for his publishing house.
Right.
But he believed in me and believed in my poetry. Right. And he wanted me to have the experience of putting a book out into the world. And I'll be really honest, I self-published my first 2 books, as you know, and I loved my self-publishing experience.
Well, this is what I want to point out, because it's not that Reed didn't think you were good enough for Hay House. I mean, I have so many friends, colleagues, and clients who feel like if they don't find a traditional publisher right out of the gate, that somehow says something negative about them. And all I say to them is, it says you're at the beginning. That's right. It just says you're at the beginning. It's just the way it is, And so I love your story for that reason.
But here's the thing. I'll tell you, the beauty of self-publishing is, you can have a book in your hands in a few months versus, a year and a half.
Yep.
And I was able to use my first book of poems and my second book, Jump In Your Life Will Appear. I was really able to use those books that I self-published as calling cards. They gave me street cred,
right.
And
because I remember actually, when you first published the book of poems, someone flew you somewhere to speak at an event about divorce. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
That would not have happened if you hadn't had a book. Because it legitimized you. It made you an expert. Even though, they didn't know who published it. They didn't care. They just knew you had a beautifully packaged, I will say, really, really beautiful book of poems. So the content was great. The book looked professional. And that was what got your foot in the door for an event like that.
Exactly. And, I think that fortunately, self-publishing nowadays is completely validated and viable. And, it's not like it was in the olden days. No. And I loved the experience of self-publishing. I mean, ultimately, Hay House did pick up, my pickup Jump, and then I got a contract for my, next books. But as much as I love being a Hay House author, don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's such a long drawn out process versus the self-publishing process.
Yes.
And so, and ultimately, as we're always busting the myth in the writer's workshop, is regardless of self-publishing or traditional publishing, it's really up to the author to get the book into people's hands.
Yes.
And so, I felt like I got my, I rolled up my sleeves with my self-published book. So I was really ready to do it on a bigger scale when Hay House came along.
Great. So that is something that I wanted to just talk about as well, is what did you do to roll up your sleeves? Just a couple ideas for us about how you just brought yourself out into a public, onto that center stage, into that spotlight.
Yes.
How did you get yourself there?
Okay. So this is great. So along, sort of happening at parallel of the time of me self-publishing the books was, I really wanted to coach. And I had now done my training and realized, even though I thought I never wanted to coach, I realized I actually did want to coach. So then I was on a walk with Reed Tracy in Melbourne, Australia. And he actually turned to me and said, I have the sense that you're at the end of your rope. And I said, I am actually. And I asked you to go on this walk with me because I'm quitting my job. And he said, I'll tell you when you can quit your job.
Leave it to an Enneagram 8.
I mean, it was the best. It was the best. It was the best. So he said the best thing you can do is actually build your platform. So he suggested I finish my second book and self-publish it. He suggested that I, get my roster of clients so that I can really start building my coaching practice. And that, back then it was, Facebook page pretty much only. Start, I already had a website at the time, but really amp up my list building, really amp up getting out a weekly newsletter and having a freebie opt-in, and anything I could do to really start nurturing a community who would ultimately want what I got.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to say, like, now you have a very vibrant Facebook community, you have a membership, you have coach. I don't know if you still do one-on-one coaching clients, a few?
I do a teeny bit of one-on-one coaching.
And you do courses, right? You teach each of the books in a coaching format. And I think you have something coming up, right? You've got a little mastermind I wanted to tell everybody about, because I really do feel like, again, so many of our clients are people who want to be helping other people, and they maybe haven't actually done their own work to the degree that they need to in order to be able to step out, and they know that, and they're looking for ways. And you've got this really cool masterclass coming up that I think would be perfect for anyone who wants to really be able to walk their talk. You have to actually do the work yourself before you can write about it. So I wanted to know, tell us about this masterclass.
Yeah, so the masterclass is called 3 Surprising Secrets Every Life Coach Needs to Know.
Fantastic.
And here's the deal. Whether you want to be a coach or not, the skills and tools and transformation that you'll experience will enhance every area of your life. Yes. So, I shared with you a little bit ago, I did my coach training not even ever wanting to be a coach. Mm-hmm. And I stayed at Hay House in my job 3 years after that. Mm-hmm. And so it enhanced everything that I did. It supported everything I did that allowed me to bring my books into the world. And what I ended up doing is seeing the intersection between becoming an author and becoming a coach, mm-hmm. and creating my own curriculum.
Right.
So,
yes, yeah, so exactly.
That was a big piece.
I mean, I say this all the time to our clients, that if you actually write a book, you haven't just written a book. You've created a program, and it could be an online course. It could be a training program. It could be a one-on-one coaching program. That book, if you're working in transformational nonfiction, is actually your program. You've done I hate to say killed 2 birds with 1 stone, because it's not exactly the right metaphor, but you know what I'm saying. You've actually done twice the work in one go round. So I love that, because that's exactly what you did with all of your books. You turned them into coaching programs.
I did. And then, there was also a way in which there was a beautiful dovetail and complement, because we would create the outline for the book, and then I would essentially get a beta coaching group together, and I would take them through the outline. So I was essentially test driving the material.
Yes.
And I was test driving exercises, because I knew that by the time I put the book together, I wanted to really ensure that it was a proven process.
Yep.
And so I allowed my coaching to support my book writing, and the book to support the coaching, so that by the time the book was complete, I had taken people through the process. I had people's stories. I had success stories, mm-hmm. that I could embed into the book.
Yes.
And then once the book was written, I had the program I could take people through.
Totally. And I can say also, as someone who's not a coach, but who has gone through a full year-long coach training, I didn't do Debbie's, but I did one that I really love. I wouldn't have been able to build my business, have the confidence to have this YouTube channel, really work with clients to overcome their blocks to writing, etc., without having done that. But that's not even the most important. What happened most importantly was my own internal process. I feel like a more whole person having gone through all of that process. So I just really think that those 3 coaching secrets that you have for any life coach could really be for any author. So I encourage anyone who's watching this to sign up for your lovely masterclass. I can't wait. Is there anything else? I mean, tell us where we can find you, where everyone can find you. We'll have links below, but what's the best place to find Nancy on the web?
The best place to find me is at nancylevin.com. All the things are there, but click Kelly's link to come to the masterclass.
Down below. You'll see it all below. So wonderful. I mean, how happy am I? And we're going to do a part 2 coming up soon. So just so you know, everyone, this is not the last you're going to see of our Nancy. But yes, thank you so much for being here, Nancy. It's so inspiring.
It is my pleasure.